We are here with Deuce McAllister, Saints great, NFL great, college football great. He is here as part of the NFL alumni's new obesity campaign. Over 1/3 of Americans deal with excess weight. Deuce, I don't know if you know this, but in my past, I've been as heavy as 375 pounds. So I understand this plight. What got you into addressing this, and why is the NFL addressing it?
Well, I think, just from well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I think, just trying to encourage some of the former athletes and just really our population in general about the importance of, making sure that we take care of ourselves. There's an old saying that health is wealth. And so I think that's definitely one, if you want to be able to live a healthy and wealthy, quote unquote, lifestyle, it starts with taking care of the body. And so just to be able to encourage some of the former athletes, and so that there are people out there that haven't forgotten about them. And so the NFL has done a pretty good job, even the PA has done a pretty good job of creating programs, but just to be able to encourage former players that there are things out there and ways for us to be able to still be involved, still be a part of a team, and hopefully to be able to just to do a little bit better of taking care of our bodies.
If you were going to give an ex-NFL player a game that is brutal on the body, if you're going to give them one tip, two tips on what you can do to keep yourself healthy after your playing career is over, what would you say to do?
Being able to hit, the mythical, we'll call it 10,000 steps a day. Okay. And then being able to at least drink 120 ounces of water. I think those two things are, it's not the magic one or the magic numbers, but they've been proven that helps with being able to lose some of that weight that we kind of carry, and just to being active. I mean, and so taking those steps, on a daily basis, and just trying to, get those 4 to 5 bottles of water before 12 o'clock. Yeah. And now I can get those other 3 or 4 in that afternoon. I think those are all, things that we can achieve. Obviously, I'm not a medical profession.
Sure, of course.
And so to be able to rely upon what your doctor is telling you, is what, truly has to happen. But there's enough studies out there. NFL Alumni Association on3.com is one of the websites that you can go to just to be able to find some of that information. But just from an encouraging standpoint, that's really what we want to be able to do.
It's funny. You said listening to what your doctor tells you. Just going to the doctor, having a relationship with a medical health professional is such a huge thing. And sometimes, I'm from right up here in Baton Rouge. Sometimes, particularly in our community, we don't have the relationship with physicians that we should, based upon cost, but sometimes based upon just the way we're brought up in culture.
In that field.
Yeah.
So feeling comfortable with somebody in that field that you need, and so just a general will be able to at least lead you in the right direction. And you may need, just depending on that person, they may need something a little bit more, we'll call it specific for them. Yeah. But, I mean, that's a start. Of course. And so if you can start, then hopefully, that leads you down the right path that you need. And so I think it's important. I mean, we all, from a father standpoint, even from a family standpoint, you want to be able to set that next generation up. Well, being around for that next generation is setting them up, and that's what we have to be able to do to make sure that we're helping them to be successful in life. And that's what, starting with your own health is one of those factors.
All right. Deuce, man, I'm a Saints fan. Okay?
Been a rough year for us.
We in the dirt, okay? What do we have to do, Deuce? What do we have to do? We have a Deuce McAllister right now. We have a player that reminds me of you in the way that he runs the ball, catches the ball, understands the game, Alvin Kamara. We have some pieces. There's a Olave there. There's some guys on the team, both sides of the ball. We talked to DeMario Davis here a couple of days ago. What do the Saints need to do to get back to winning so we can watch some football on Sunday?
Well, you got to be a lot more consistent. I think that starts with, from, I don't want to call it a leadership standpoint, but that's really the players owning what they're doing. I mean, and so you've got to have a little pride in what your job is, and to make sure that from the top down, everybody understands what they have to do. And so, like you said, there's some pieces there. But you've got to get younger at some positions as well. And there, from a depth standpoint, you got to continue to add to that. And so it almost had to be, for the last couple of years, I want to call it a perfect storm with health. we know we didn't have it.
Of course not.
And so when you had the injuries, that kind of a light was shown on some of the things that you don't have a little bit brighter. And so you've got to get some pieces in. They've got to figure out the head coaching situation, and I think that'll be done in a couple days. The other piece is once you have that in place, what is my philosophy, offense and defense, and do I have the pieces there to be able to make these guys successful? And so we'll see what happens on the offseason, like I said, but it starts with the head coach. And so can you get the right, QB in place from a long-term standpoint? And then from a defensive standpoint, that defense has to be elite. Last year it was not elite. And, but that was how that team was built. We'll see how they try to rebuild this team over the next couple of days, months, et cetera.
I asked DeMario a question here because, you guys both performed at a high level, Hall of Fame levels here in New Orleans.
Yep.
And there's another athlete in New Orleans right now that people want to perform at that Hall of Fame high level, and his name is Zion Williamson.
Yep.
If you were going to give Zion any advice, being successful in this city, being accepted by the culture and the people here, what advice would you give him?
Well, one, I want Zion, I want Big Z to be Z. And so I think, that's first and foremost. And so to understand the spotlight that he has on him, I think he knows and he does. And so he's a guy that wants to be here in New Orleans. Maybe sometimes there's outside media that doesn't want him here, but he's in a place now where I think that he is taking it not for granted. Because in the past he's been able to take it for granted in a sense because he was just so much better.
Yeah.
He was just so much more talented. But now I'm playing against guys that are, maybe just as good as me in a jumping aspect, or maybe just as quick as me in a quickness aspect. Very few players have all of what he has. But for Zion now, it's about doing the little stuff off the court, where I take care of my body, where I go and get the stretching done, where I, try to create little stuff for himself where it's, hey, I'm getting better. It's hard to build up to getting in shape. You see it in football a lot of times where at training camp, I build up to get in shape, and some guys, just depending on their body and their style, they have to maybe do a little bit more maintenance all the time.
Right.
And so for him, getting the nutritionist in place, getting someone that I trust to be able to work with me on my game, but also taking care of himself off the court, then I think that unlocks the Zion that he really wants to be. I'll never tell a player, whether it's Zion, football, basketball, or whatever, don't enjoy their sport because, you only get to do it for so long.
Right.
But you've got to understand as well that sport is what keeps you in it.
Right.
And so for you to unlock it, I've got to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do on the field, off the field, or off the court. And so hopefully he can continue to do that because there's been spurts, man. It's just been like, oh yeah, this is who we've been waiting on, but it's only been spurts. He hadn't been able to put it completely together.
Consistency. We're going to get you out of here real quick, but I got to bring up one last thing, man. I'm from Baton Rouge, born and raised.
Yep.
I'm a gigantic LSU fan. Lane Kiffin's getting on my nerves, Deuce. Deuce, I'm done with him. Like he needles me. He pokes, and then he puts the team on the field. And what's your estimation, Lane Kiffin, where Ole Miss is right now?
Should have been a playoff team this year. You should have been a playoff team. A tremendous amount of talent, but
they should have made the playoffs, or
correct.
they should have been a playoff team.
You should have made the playoffs this past year. You should have been in the playoffs.
What I mean is, do you think that Ole Miss was robbed of a playoff spot, or do you think that the team underperformed and didn't get into the playoffs?
You underperformed when you didn't get in. I don't think it's a robbery. I mean, you lost some games that you shouldn't have lost.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you put yourselves where you didn't control the narrative, and you allowed voters to be able to say, nope, we don't like the resume.
Right.
And so you had enough talent where you should have been in the playoffs. And so I don't put that on the voters. I put that on, the team. And they kind of understand that, hey, we have to go out there and perform. And so he's done an incredible job, though, to be able to get you in the conversation because for the longest we weren't even in the conversation.
Yeah.
But now to be able to be in the conversation, and it's unique. But with that uniqueness, there comes an obligation and an expectation. And so at some point you have to be able to meet that expectation. And so we'll see if they can get in it this upcoming year. But, I mean, how that game is changing, the NIL factor that comes into play, the transfer portal that comes into play, it's really just semi-pro football.
Good or bad for college football?
Depends on what you expect from college football. From a coaching standpoint, it's very tough because not only am I recruiting from a high school and then watching quote-unquote performance of other teams, I have my own roster that I have to worry about.
Yeah.
And so every year, sometimes every week, I'm having to recruit. And so you see the expansion of those staffs of, hey, how do we keep this player happy? How can I keep this player engaged? And then you see some of the things that happens with quarterback up in Vanderbilt where he gets another year because, hey, and so you see that happen where junior college maybe doesn't count. Now, a lot of people think that's for every junior college. That's not the case, and so we'll see how it continues to change. But college football is an interesting space to be in right now.
Yeah. Deuce McAllister, Saints legend, thank you for your time served here in New Orleans. And best of luck to you in the NFL in combating something that's a real problem for Americans and doing real important work. Thank you very much, Deuce.
Thank you.
All right, brother.